What's going on? Welcome to the 2022-2023 college basketball season. We are 55 minutes away from getting underway with our first match on the extra board of Baylor and Mississippi Valley State. Obviously, this is a Mississippi Valley State team with George Ivory coaching, and in my opinion, a team that lacks a lot of size and could get exposed on the interior by Baylor's guards and from their front court. It's going to be a good game just to freaking get your feet wet, adapt to what you've been watching to what college basketball is. And when you watch NBA or international basketball, I do find that it does take a little adapting back to the speed, the tempo, and the skill level at the collegiate level. All right, so obviously with a card in a day like this, there's going to be a ton of line movement on all these games. So you really have to play your number, trust your information, trust your sources, and trust your group. I can start on the main board with the first game there, and that's Pacific and Stanford. We've seen this line open up at 15.5, go as high as 20, now is back down to 16, and we've seen the total do the same thing. Open up at 137.5, get up to 140, back down to 136. So what obviously I can interpret from looking at that line move is that we're getting two-sided action. Sharps are hitting both the over and the under, and that's why the number has seesawed. IPF Purdue Fort Wayne, I almost called them IPFW because all these stat sheets still call them that. But Fort Wayne versus Michigan, we have seen a heavy line move towards the over. I think that with Purdue Fort Wayne, they have an experienced bunch of guys coming back. They have their lead dog. They still have Damian Chonqui. I think that the biggest thing for them is what type of Michigan team do they get? Do they get the Michigan team that had Kobe Buffkin and Jet Howard go for 50 points combined? Or does Hunter Dickinson slow this game down, take the ball in the low block, and then run the offense through him on every possession? So that's going to be real interesting to see. That game starts at 6:30. If you ask me, I think that you got to look at fading that line movement, but it's not a bet that I've made. I do not think that it's going to make my board. All right. We have seen a bit of a line movement with Robert Morris in Ohio State. I think that's just because maybe there's going to be guys missing for Ohio State. Justice Suwing really hasn't played that much, and he's supposed to be projected as their leading scorer. But this is an Ohio State team that did very good on the transfer market portal and should have a refreshed look and be able to score. Against Robert Morris, you're going to go up against an experienced point guard in Mike Green, but they lost some really key pieces to this team, and I'm just not sure. I'm not confident in them being able to stay within this number. It's more, I feel like Ohio State may play down to them, which we have seen before. If Robert Morris is going to have a big impact on this game and win on the spread, I do think that Josh Corbin, the transfer from Winthrop, I believe, is probably the most important piece of the new pieces that Andy Toole has. So you got a guy that comes from a system where scoring was definitely something he did a lot of, and now he's going to have an opportunity on a much shorter depth chart to get more opportunities. So Robert Morris could surprise, but definitely not one of my favorite plays. I talked about Evansville, Miami, Ohio last night. I talked about VCU and Manhattan last night. From the line move that I'm seeing right now in the Penn Iona game, it's looking like Jordan Dingle is going to play. Jordan Dingle on the game notes for Penn is listed as a starter, so hopefully he doesn't play. And this line move is just a bunch of fucking bullshit. All right. Rutgers is a team that obviously has to replace two really high-quality pieces that made a lot of shots for them, won a lot of games for them, and I'm just not sure that the pieces there are ready to go on the first day, on their first game. Steve Peichel, don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic coach. He's lifted this Rutgers team out of freaking the abyss. But if Caleb McConnell and Paul Mulcahy are your 1 and 2 scoring options at the wing and guard spot, it doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence in me. You're going to need one of these young guys like Derek Simpson or Jalen Miller to have an impact. I'm just not sure that's going to happen. I think we're going to see a short bench. We may only see 6 guys at play. So I'm very interested to get my eyes on Rutgers and see what Steve Peichel' confidence level and minute allocation is going to be. I'm just not willing to bet on Rutgers as a 20-plus point favorite. So not one of the teams that I want to do something like that with. Columbia is no friend of mine, but I just have to look at Rutgers and be like, this is another team that constantly through their non-conference seasons over the last 3 years with a better squad have underplayed and downplayed to their opponents. So I'm not going to make a move over there. When it comes to VMI and Richmond, we have seen a pretty big move towards Richmond on the spread, about 5 points, and we have seen a 5-point move to the under. I think that with VMI and Andrew Wilson taking over for Dan Earl, I think that Sean Conway and Tanner Mans have to help this transition go forward. And if they can do that, that's going to be big for them. The problem is there's 3 guys that are going to potentially be out, and I think Tanner Mans and Lewis Tang are 2 of them. So I think Richmond is going to really fuck up VMI today. I think VMI may hang around for the first half, but I do think that Richmond's going to fucking open a can of whoop ass on them. So Richmond with Tyler Burton, with Jason Roche. I love Jason Roche. He was a really effective freshman scorer, 3-point shooter from Citadel. I like him a lot. The one injury for Richmond is going to be Connor Crabtree. I don't think he's going to play, but I do like the addition of Neil Quinn from Lafayette. I do like my fellow Canadian Matt Grace, who won 2 games for them, including the A-10 championship game. So this kid is one of the guys I think can be a breakout player. And you have an NBA-ready Tyler Burton at 6'7" and 200 and fucking ripped muscles pounds. So I think that this Richmond team, although you lose generation-type players, like legacy-type players, I think that they're going to be fine in this particular matchup versus VMI. So I would like them to get out to an early lead. I won't be surprised if they don't, but I do think that with a lot of these teams like VCU, like Stanford to an extent, like Richmond, like who else is on this board? Toledo. They made lackluster a little in the first half, but they do have that potential to take it up 3 notches in the second. All right. One thing that I'm definitely trying not to do is smoke a bunch of fucking weed before these shows and before these streams, so I'm not coughing. I was just clearing my throat there. All right, Clemson and Citadel. Listen, Citadel is looking like a sad bunch of sons of bitches. But if you've watched Clemson when they're playing without PJ Hall, it's just I don't know what's going to happen. First off, Clemson is very young this year. I'm counting 4 or 5 freshmen that may see minutes. Then we're talking about maybe Brevin Galloway being the only guy that can lead this team in scoring. And I don't even think that he's going to average 12 points a game. So I just think that when you have to take away all the shots and all the things that PJ Hall does, it's not going to work out to a better percentage allocating all those shot attempts to Hunter Tyson, Chase Hunter, Galloway, Hemingway. I just don't think so. And you take away a guy that's 6'10" that can really command a double team from the defense with a group that struggles to score in general with him in the lineup. I just think that this is a game that goes under, and I just have to take Citadel, even though it fucking disgusts me. So, listen. For Citadel, at least, they still have Rudy Fitzgibbons. They still have Stephen Clark. Hopefully, these 2 guys can take big jumps. But like when you lose Hayden Brown and Fletcher Abbey, those are big losses. There's no questioning about it. But the scheme that Ed Conroy runs at the Citadel is hopefully going to help one of these guys or two of these guys have a breakout and have a breakout early. So I look forward to getting eyes on this game because it is two contrasting styles of play. And I think that with Hall being out, there's just no other way to attack it but to take Citadel, even though it may make you fucking puke. All right, Tennessee and Tennessee Tech. Listen, Tennessee, I would not be surprised they win this game by 40 points. So I think that Tennessee Tech, I've watched them in the exhibition season. I think that they definitely have some upside against a quality of opponent that's closer to their level. But this Tennessee team is going to be very good. They're scary good. And I'm not a Tennessee fan of any sort. I think that when you look at what they brought in, what they recruited, that's a big thing. Julian Phillips is a difference maker. I think that he's going to have a very good freshman type, All-American type season. Not All-American, but like a freshman All-American. I think that with Zakai Ziegler, I think that he definitely got overshadowed last year, and he's going to be able to really elevate this offense with his with his ability just to break someone off the dribble, his ability to fucking get shots up over guys when you think he's going to get blocked. And I'll say this, the old guys of Vescovi and fucking Jordan James, Josiah Jordan James, these are the guys that have to really dominate offensively to cover spreads like this. I think that we're going to be in a good situation. I think that Tennessee definitely is going to really put the fucking thumb to the metal and put their thumb into Tennessee Tech's eye. I don't think that this game is close, and I think that the spread obviously reflects that. Listen, I'm not dissing Tyrone Perry. I'm not dissing Deontay Wood and Daniel Ramsey. I just don't think that they have the strength, the size, and the quickness to be able to stop these guys over the course of 40 minutes. This is another game where maybe they play competitive for 15 to 20 minutes, but I think eventually Tennessee figures out how to dominate them, and then they dominate them. The numbers there for a reason. That's how I look at it. All right. South Dakota State and Akron. Obviously, with this game, Akron is losing a ton of fucking production. Losing Ali was a big loss for them. I think that they did try out and go on the transfer portal and try get some guys to freaking come in. I just don't think that they found the guy that's going to freaking have that breakout. I do like Trenton Hankerson joining this team. I think that with him and Castaneda and Greg Tribble, that's a really good guard trio. Not a lot of size there, but when you have a guy like Enrique Freeman who could be a 15-10 guy pretty much every game, I think that that's going to be a big factor for them. And against this South Dakota State team, let's not forget that Baylor Shireman left the school and they don't have Doug Wilson. Now Zeke Mayo is going to have to be the number one option for South Dakota State. Now, don't get me wrong. I think South Dakota State's going to be better defensively inside because Luke Apple and Matt Dellinger definitely showed last year that they've taken steps forward defensively. The question's going to be, what do they get out of some of these freshmen like freaking Matthew Moores and William Kyle? So that's my big concern. I think that we may be oversimplifying this game in favor of South Dakota State. I think Akron comes out early, and then I think that they let South Dakota State back into the game. I do like the coach. I do like Coach Eric Henderson. I like his halftime adjustments, and I do think that that's going to be something that really helps him in this game if they get down early, like I suspect that they will. So I like Akron early, but I like South Dakota late. All right, Western Carolina and Georgia. Listen, simply, guys, I'll say this. Georgia's not going to have Terry Roberts. I do think that that is a big loss. That's a 10-point loss off their freaking total. I think that when you look at Georgia, the one thing that you have to recognize is who's coaching this team. And Coach Mike White has come over from Florida, taken over the job at Georgia. And for me, that means bet against. Western Carolina is not a team that inspires a lot of confidence in me whatsoever, but I just cannot bet double-digit spreads in the non-conference as a favorite with this Georgia Bulldog program ever. Now, especially because of who they're coached by. I do like what Justin Gray did on the transfer portal, bringing in Tyson Claude, bringing in Russell Jones. I do think that both those guys will have an impact, but you're going to need fucking Vontarius Woolbright to really be the alpha scorer on this team, and you're going to need Tyler Harris to be able to give you a lot more than 10 points a game. I think that this is a really good aptitude test type game for Western Carolina, and going up against Georgia, this is a game that they could actually win. Don't get me wrong. With Martez McBride and freaking Carrillo Oquendo, I like what these guys can do. They both can hit a three. They both can create off the dribble for themselves. But I think that when you look at what they're going to see defensively, that's where the problem's going to be. Can they pass out of a double team? Can they create when they're getting pressured? And can they freaking adapt their shot selection if their shot of choice isn't going down? So, other thing for Georgia that's sticking out to me is Jalen Ingram. He may not play. I don't know. If they go with a starting lineup of Justin Hill, Jackson Eder, Bridges, Oquendo, and McBride, I think that they're beatable on the glass. That's how I look at it. But I do suspect that Bridges, Moncrief will start at the 5 and 4. Then we'll see Oquendo. Then we'll see Justin Hill. Then we'll see Jackson Eder. All right, let's move it on. Air Force and Bowling Green, not really a game I really want to talk about, so I'll just move on from there. Listen, Valparaiso and Toledo is a very interesting game. Toledo obviously is very good at home, very good in first halves, and very good when they're playing a team from close or a state over like they are now. Obviously, in the backcourt, it starts and ends with Ray J. Dennis and Raheem Moss, but they did make two really nice transfer market acquisitions in freaking Tyler Cochran, who seems to have played at like half the schools in the MAC conference, and Dante Maddox. I think that both these guys are going to give a lot of offensive production in this system, in the way that this team runs. And when you talk about scoring front courts, JT Shoemate and Cedric Milner may be the number one tandem in mid-major basketball. So when you can get 30-plus points out of those two guys, we may see this Toledo team score into the 80s or 90s today. Now, going up against this Valparaiso team and Matt Lodich is definitely not going to be a walk in the park. They have a Canadian, and you know how I feel about teams that have Canadians. I like them. And Ben Krieke is one of these Canadians that has just really worked hard, improved in areas that he was asked to, and he's earning respect from other people amongst the mid-major basketball community. I think that with him and the scoring ability of Connor Barrett, and then the lead dog alpha scoring from Kobe King, these guys are not going to be smacked around and freaking kept out of it. I think that this is a Valparaiso team that can score with Toledo, but I do think that in the end, Toledo will win. It's just a matter of how many points. Do you think it's 9 points or do you think it's 14 points? And let's not forget, in college basketball, when we have a close game and we anticipate that game staying close in the second half, what is going to happen? Free throws. When you read as many box scores as I do, you always look at the first half, second half splits and the difference between first half free throws and second half free throws. That's why first half unders are great. That's why full game overs are great, because if it's a close game, you're going to have that 8-point extension of the game. I foul you. I foul you. I foul you. So I think that this could be one of those games. Hopefully we don't need it to get over the total, but I do think that Toledo wins it. It's just a matter of, do you want to lay 13 points with them against this Valparaiso team with the experience and the versatility of their offense. And don't forget, they're not playing that defensive style that they used to. They're trying to score the basketball. All right, Quinnipiac and Rhode Island, don't really have anything on that. I think that with this Niagara, Maryland game, it's really going to be an interesting it's going to be an interesting transition for Niagara, just because when you lose a guy like Marcus Hammond, who was your shot maker, he was the drought ender, he was the guy that you had confidence in being able to draw a double team and then leave you open for a shot and making that shot. Like, that's the type of heart and soul guy he is. And they're not going to have that against a Maryland team that Kevin Willard is taking over from. Which I'm happy about as a UConn fan. I'm glad that he's not coaching in the Big East anymore. But he's got some pretty nice pieces that he's going to work into this offense. And one being Jameer Young from Charlotte, the other being Donald Carey from Georgetown. I think that going along Dante Scott and Hakeem Hart, they're going to have a very nice balance of guys that can score inside, guys that can score out, guys that can go off the dribble and then take over. I don't think that we have a guy that's going to be all ACC on this roster, but I do think that we have a possible breakout candidate in Julian Reese. I look for Julian Reese to be the most dominant player on the floor for Maryland today. If they're going to cover this big number and win by 20 at home where they have been able to do so, I do think that it's going to start with him. He is just a fantastic prospect, and I do think we're going to see the best of him this year. Now, for Niagara, the biggest thing is who's going to take the shot at the end of the clock. This is a team that has a lot of seniors, a lot of experience, so they shouldn't be all shook going into an environment against Maryland. David Mitchell was definitely good in the exhibition game that I watched. Noah Thompson was very good. Braxton Bayless was very good. But I just worry about how that translates from a non-D1 opponent to an ACC opponent. Greg Paulus is a great coach. I just think that he got a raw deal here, and he wasn't able to get on the transfer portal and get someone good. So look out for Maryland today. I think that they have a very nice game. All right. Moorhead State in Indiana. That's a game that I'm not touching. Tarleton, Arizona State. I talked about that last night. Lindenwood and Dayton. I'll just say this. I do like the under in the game. I think that with Dayton, my biggest problem is, do they start the season hitting threes and being hot from three like they were in A10 play? Or do they have a bit of a three-point drought for the first couple games and really have to play hammer down defense? Lindenwood obviously is a new team to D1 men's basketball, so the transition may be a little rough for them. At 32 points, I'm not interested in taking Dayton. I would have to take Lindenwood or pass on it. But I do think that the under is the right spot. I see Dayton fans predicting 140 plus, 150 points in this game. I don't see it happening. If this was January, then yes, absolutely. But I just don't see it now. All right, guys. What else? Well, I think that there's definitely some value in this next game. Kent State and Northern Kentucky. I know that the lines still move 3 points off the total from 140.5 to 137.5. But you have a Northern Kentucky team that is going to have questionable point guard play this year. And I think that could really cause them problems in this game specifically, going up against Sincere Carey. When we talk about Sincere Carey, let's think about his Duquesne days. He basically elevated that program, and he was a very good ticket casher as a dog on the road. I think that that's a situation, again, where we can utilize that information for this game today. I think that when you look at Malik Jacobs, let's not forget Malik Jacobs is one of the best on-ball defenders in the MAC conference. I think that when he can get his shot and when he's crashing the glass, if he misses a shot, this is a guy that can end up with a nice double-double and be that extra offense that you need, because you're going to need it. This is a team that's going to rely on guys to score from the backcourt. This is not going to be a team that has a ton of front court scoring, in my opinion, unless you're talking about Miran Thomas. I think that with Robert Carpenter coming into the fold, I think he played at Mississippi Valley State. And if that's the same guy, then I feel pretty good about it. Yeah, it is. So I think that that's actually going to be a decent addition to Kent State because he's a good defensive player, but he's also a guy that has been that number one scoring option before. I think that the key, though, and we know this from the split records when Santiago is in the lineup or not in the lineup, Kent State's winning percentage is very different. So, with a healthy Kent State team and not having any of these key guys injured, I don't think that they need to necessarily go deep into their bench against Northern Kentucky because, like I said, they are going to be playing a bit of a slower tempo. And there is point guard questions with this Northern Kentucky team. Now, I got no problem with Jake Evans or Xavier Rhodes. I'm just not sure they're the ones that I want handling the full-time point guard duties. Now, Trevon Faulkner is said to be healthy. You could definitely run the point through him. And at 6'4", he's not going to get bullied around, and he's not going to get tossed around. I think that the key is going to be how Sam Vincent shoots the three, how Marquise Warwick gets inside, and can these guys hit their fucking free throws? If they're going to leave points at the free throw line, which is obviously my biggest pet peeve in the history of having pet peeves, then they're not going to win this game. I think that this game maybe sees 130 to 133, and I think that this is a game where Kent State starts the season off with an upset win. So I like Sincere Carry in this spot. All right, let's move on to... I talked about that one last night. Dartmouth and Fordham. Okay, so obviously with Fordham, Darius Quisenberry is the lead dog to this offense, but I think that this Fordham team is going to be able to score inside. I think that they're going to be able to really play some good defense, and I think that this is a game that is going to be ugly. You know, I think it's going to be in the 125 range. I think that this number right now at 127.5 is definitely less than what I bet. I got, I believe, 129. And I think that this is a game that stays under. I think that Fordham against Dartmouth, listen, in most years, I'd be looking at Dartmouth as a dog. I just can't do it. I think that Fordham is a team that, even though they lost their coach, is still underrated. And even though they're in one of the bottom tiers for this conference, I still think that Keith Ergo is going to have a good quality starting five at least. You're going to have good size with Tisbila and Khalid Moore and Antrell Charlton. And then you have good proven system players in Kyle Rose and freaking, what's his name? Fucking Will Richardson. So I'm very excited about this Fordham team in this particular matchup, just because when we look at some of these Ivy League teams, what happens when they have mass graduations? There's a lot of goddamn freshmen on these teams. And for Dartmouth in particular, you know, no one's being very generous with predictions of what's going to happen in the Ivy. This is a Dartmouth team that is predicted to finish last. When I think about guys like Nate Obu, Ryan Cornish, or Coach Dave McLaughlin, what do I think? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know any of these guys. Who the fuck are these people? But they're Ivy League basketball players. So I'm riding with Fordham. I think that it's a system play. I think that it's a style mismatch for Dartmouth. And I think that when you look at what Dartmouth is putting out there versus what Fordham can do inside and with a game-changing scorer in Quisenberry, it just seems like a no-brainer. And I'm hoping that it fucking results and turns out that way. Indiana is getting steamed right now. The number jumped from 22 to 24.5. I'm using my arbitrage betting software, and it's telling me line moves as we go. All right, let's move on to another game. College of Charleston versus Chattanooga. Yeah, the line move from 151 to 158.5 is extreme. I don't know if it gets that high. I projected this game to be 154.5 to 156. So it's a little out of my price range or number range, excuse me. And I think that with College of Charleston, you know, Rain Smith is definitely the most important player on that team to score and hit threes. And I just feel like when I look at his box scores that they're a little inconsistent. And that's a big deal for me. I think that consistency going into a season from last year and carrying it over is something that is hard to find nowadays. But I do think that it's going to be something that plagues Charleston more than it fucking benefits them. Bringing in Ryan Larson from Wofford's a good addition. I think that with Pat Kelsey, he's gonna play fast. He's gonna fucking try and get into that 80 possession type mode, and that works for him because it means that guys are getting high percentage looks and they're getting a lot of close to the rim looks. I think that's the key for this Charleston team. I think that the more you force them to the perimeter, the more that you can keep them down. But if they can run and get their tempo, it's probably going to be a bit of a track meet. When I look at Chattanooga, though, this is a Chattanooga team that's going to be playing like VMI, in my opinion. Dan Earl's now the coach of Chattanooga. He brought in freaking Jake Stevens, who's a 7-footer that can give you a 17-10 type game. And I just think that we're going to see a lot of 3-point shooting out of guys like Dalvin White and AJ Caldwell and Jamal Walker, Hunter Huff. Like, all these guys are going to have to shoot the three. And if they hit those threes, then you're going to get a lot of overs with Chattanooga. And I think that with improved quality in their lineup from a personnel standpoint, I think that you're going to get some more wins. So not like Chattanooga didn't have a problem doing that before. I just think that with this style of play and offense that they're going to run, this is going to be, in my opinion, by the end of the season, a top 100 offense. And if that's the case, then they're going to cash a bunch of tickets for us if we stay loyal to them. All right, let's have a look at this Texas State-Washington State game. So I talked about it last night. There are some major injuries for Washington State and Texas State. Texas State could be missing Mason Harrell and Nigel Caesar both tonight. This is a game that you wait till the lineup is announced right before the game. I think with Washington State, Justin Powell isn't on the injured list, but I think he's not going to play. I think that he suffered another concussion. I read one source that I trust and then another source that I don't trust on it. So it must be going around at least. We saw Washington State open up as a 10.5-point favorite. They went as high as 14. Now it's down to 12.5. So you're getting some buyback. But the thing with Texas State that you're going to have to remember is, can they replicate that 3-point shooting that Caleb Asbury and Shelby Adams provided last year? I'm not so sure about that. I have some big question marks about this roster. And even though they're going to be able to play the same kind of defense that Terrence Johnson has instilled in this program, I think that it's putting a lot on Tyrell Morgan and Drew Dinnan to really step up. You're not going to have Elijah Kendi. You're not going to have Tong Gotkick. There's just so many guys that you're not going to have. So you're going to have to trust your freshmen. And I'm just not confident in that on the road versus Kyle Smith in their building. Now, don't get me wrong. Washington State is going to be depleted tonight if they're missing Powell, if they're missing Jakumovsky, if they're missing who else are they missing? Fucking Deshaun Jackson. Like, there's some key pieces, but I'll say this: Kyle Smith has shown an ability, what he showed at San Francisco and he showed so far in his stint at Washington State, is that he can take freshmen and give them quality minutes and get good minutes out of them. So I like the size of fucking Diongu. I think that at 7 foot, you're always definitely attracted to me as a short person. I like tall people. They're good for getting shit off the top shelf. But this is a kid that could be thrusted into it if Kyle Smith sees an advantage with going big, throwing 2 7-footers out there at the same time. Obviously, as an old Chicago Bull fan, a big Michael Jordan fan, I want to see DJ Rodman succeed. Maybe this year in his senior year, we finally see him take a step forward and make us notice him a little more. But as far as betting it, if you didn't get Washington State or Texas State at their best number, I would wait to see until the lineups come out. All right, let's talk Ohio and Belmont, because Ohio's a very interesting team. Obviously, when you lose a point guard of the quality of Mark Cedars, it's like, who are you going to bring in? What are you going to do? I think it's going to be point guard by committee to start the season. But with Jalen Hunter and Devon Baker both scoring guards that can handle the ball, I don't think it's necessarily going to be a big freaking nuclear bomb in their asshole. That's how I vulgarly say it. I think that the key for Ohio's success this year is going to be Dwight Wilson. We saw what he meant to the lineup when Ben Vanderplay, Mark Cedars, and him were in the lineup together. I think that he can be the alpha on this team. And I think that with Ohio, they're playing a Belmont team that is making a transition to a new conference, is taking a step up in competition, and really didn't do that good of a job, in my opinion, on the transfer portal, getting guys that can freaking take over what you just lost. You lost a 4 or 5 year point guard that was all conference every year. You lost the best big man in the Ohio Valley Conference the last 2 or 3 years. Like, you lost a lot. And Will Richard transferred to Florida. So I'm just not sold on betting on this Belmont team as a big favorite. I think that they win the game today, but I'm just not seeing any value in taking them as a 5.5 or 6 point favorite. Now, when the line opened at 10 for Ohio, it's like, yeah, you got to jump on that. But most people didn't see that. I think that if Belmont's going to have success, they're going to need better efficiency out of Keyshawn Davidson, better than they got last year. And Drew Freiberg is going to have to average over 15 points a game. I'm just not sure that's going to happen, and I don't think it's going to happen in the first game. So I'm a little weary of this matchup. But if you were to twist my arm and tell me, Max, I'm going to fucking never let you eat a cupcake again unless you make a play on this game, I would take the over 145. From a stylistic standpoint, both these teams aren't going to try and slow it down. So it's a little bit of a conundrum type game. Not my favorite on the board by any stretch. This next game, Illinois State against Western Illinois. I love in-state battles. I think that they're always extra fucking chippy. And with Illinois State, obviously, I'm very impartial to them because they have a Canadian in Liam McChesney. I think that this is a kid that can really take a step forward this year. At 6'10", he's not going to have a ton of competition when it comes to taking minutes. It's just going to be more about his stamina and staying out of foul trouble. I like what Illinois State has as far as guards. Now, let's not beat around the bush. Losing Antonio Reeves in the 21 points per game that he averaged is definitely something that hurts them. However, I think in this matchup against Western Illinois and Trenton Massner, I just think that this is a team that is going to be able to flex their muscle. They're a better quality team from a better conference. I like what they have as far as size on the wings in Seneca Knight and Kendall Lewis. Both guys that can take over, both guys that can get to the free throw line. And if Illinois State chooses and gets to the free throw line, I do think that that's going to really help them. This is a team that is not playing a very challenging schedule, especially non-conference, and playing quad 4 teams like this. These are the games that you should win by 10 plus points. I expect that to happen, and I'd be surprised if it doesn't. All right. This is a game that a lot of people wanted to talk about. I got a bunch of DMs about this. Memphis and Vanderbilt. Now, Memphis and Vanderbilt's a real interesting game because think about what Memphis had, now what they're transitioning to. They're transitioning to an offense that is going to be centered around Kendrick Davis. The only 2 proven scores on this Memphis team, in my estimations, is Kendrick Davis and DeAndre Williams. I'm not sure Keontae Kennedy can score in the American Athletic. I'm not sure Elijah McCadden can score in the Athletic. You're getting what I'm saying. Am I going to trust Alex Lomax to lead me on a nightly basis scoring-wise? Hell fucking no. So I'm just not going to fucking play that shit. If you're going to get 30 points between the 2 of them from Davis and Williams, where do your other 40 points come from? That's what I'm worried about in this game. I think that, like a lot of people, there may be a little bit of an offensive slowdown to start this game. I wouldn't be surprised if these teams go scoreless for a minute or two to start. But I think that at the end of the day, it's going to be a wire-to-wire game, bucket for bucket, and whoever does the following three things better is going to win. If you make your free throws, limit your turnovers, and take away second chance opportunities, you're going to win this basketball game. Now, the team that can do that is the team that's going to win. I personally think it's going to be Vanderbilt. Now, don't get me wrong. I have been talking about Vanderbilt and not in the most positive way. I've talked about the fact that they have some huge shoes to fill with Scottie Pippen's offense off the board. They're going to have to play defensively. I question whether Ezra Manjun, who didn't play a lot of power conference competition at UC Davis, how he's going to adapt to playing in the SEC. And I think that with Trey Thomas, my fellow Canadian from Crestwood Prep, can he be a guard that's counted on to run this offense and not run it into the ground? It's a lot of question marks with this Vanderbilt team, but there's just as many question marks with this Memphis team. I don't buy into Penny Hardaway being a good coach. He's never proven it to me in his recent freaking run here at Memphis. And I think that the quality of Vanderbilt's big men could come back and haunt Memphis, who usually have that NBA-ready big guy. So I like Vandy. I like the under. With the line down from 144 to 139.5, you're definitely getting to the danger zone. But I hate to go against Cab because Cab is on Memphis minus 1.5. But at 3.5, it just seems like if it's a close game and we're gonna have fouling, extend it, yeah, end up being a split. This game could end up going over. Got to remember, close games in the second half end up getting a lot of fouling. Yeah, that's a tough game. That's like one of the toughest games on the board. All right, let's talk about a little bit of an easier game, for me at least. I think that with Fairfield and Wake Forest, 12.5 is what I got on Fairfield. I think that Fairfield is definitely going to be able to stay in this game. I like what they have. I like what they brought in. I think that Caleb Fields and Bryce Gooden obviously bring some higher level competition that they played against and from better conferences. And I think that when you look at Fairfield, they have the size and skill size up front to really give Wake Forest a problem. Wake Forest is losing a lot of freaking NBA talent. They lost two guys that are fucking professionals now. Now, Jay Young is going to have to run out three guards at a time. Now, Jake Wojcik's going to have to hit threes. Caleb Fields going to have to run the offense and get inside. Alan Jean Rose is going to have to be that wing player that fucking dominates his mismatch on the defensive end. I think that there's 3 or 4 guys that Fairfield can run in there from a size perspective in the front court, and I think that they're going to be fine in this game. I think that Steve Forbes is a mid-major coach, and when I look at this roster, I look at the roster and I feel like it's a mid-major roster, not an ACC team. Davian Williamson had the opportunity for 3 years to lead this team offensively, and constantly they're looking for other guys to step up. Damari Monsanto, he put on 25 pounds of muscle is what they're saying, or lost 25 pounds. I can't remember now. But this is a guy that could be the breakout player, or Andrew Carr, the Delaware transfer. Tyree Appleby from Cleveland State and then Florida State, he's on this team now too. So they're not going to be bad or anything. I just don't think that in the first game they're going to have it all together with all these new meshing pieces. And versus a team like Fairfield, who only brought in 2 guys, versus a team that is working in 6 or 7 guys, I like the dog there. So I'm going to ride with Fairfield and eat crow if I have to. The number is moving towards the over 138 up to 142. I agree with that move. Kansas, Nebraska, Omaha. I'm hoping for a very explosive Kansas first half, and Kansas puts this game over first half. That's what I'm really hoping for. George Mason and Auburn's a real interesting game because obviously we have injury issues with Auburn, but I just think at the end of the day, George Mason has the physicality. The problem's going to be, can they contain Auburn's guards? Can they lock down some of the speed, some of the freaking bulldogs that they have in the backcourt, like Wendell Green and KD Johnson? That's my biggest concern. If those guards are torching George Mason's going to have some problems. George Mason's going to have to deal with Auburn's press. That's definitely turned over a lot of teams last year. I expect it to be used by Bruce Pearl right away. And the easiest way for George Mason to do that is to box out, get rebounds, get out into transition, and don't let Auburn set up that defense because they'll freaking press you off a make or a miss. The fact that the number's at 10 right now definitely worries me, makes me want to get a piece of Auburn, but I'm just not going to do it. I'm just not going to play both sides of the game. I'm just going to fucking ride out George Mason and fucking eat crow if it loses. All right. Let's have a look here at the next one. Okay, Southeast Missouri State versus South Florida. I don't understand what's going on with this total. Do they not remember South Florida's coached by Brian Gregory, and it's been a while since he had a very good offensive team? Because I don't remember the fucking year that it happened. I think that this South Florida team is even more question marks on offense this year, and I just don't understand why this total is going where it's going. Southeast Missouri State lost a ton of offensive production from last year's roster, like 60% or 70% of their scoring. I don't think that they're a team that's really going to want to go up and down in their first game against South Florida. I think at 143, there's nothing I can do except take the under there. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I don't understand. I that's all I can say on it. I just don't understand. It's making me angry. Obviously, Phil Russell and Chris Harris are still there for Southeast Missouri State, but it's everybody outside of that I'm just like, who's going to do what on this team? Like, is Aquan Smart going to fucking have a breakout season? Is Kobe Clark going to be a fucking 20-point per game guy? Like, the only other guy on their team that I have a little bit of confidence in is fucking Israel Barnes. So I don't know what people are seeing in this total. I don't know why they're pushing it up. I don't think that this is going to be a fucking deep offense for Southeast Missouri State that doesn't crack the fucking top 300. I think it's a 300 or worse offense. South Florida ain't no fucking cupcake themselves. You know, it's like eating fucking honey mustard on your chicken. It's disgusting. Disgusting. But I like the under 143 in the game. Let me just take a drink. All right, so this is a really challenging game next. IUPUI versus Iowa State. Plain and simply, I just don't think that IUPUI is going to fucking be the program that they were last year. They were the butt end of so many jokes because of them not being able to have enough players or only having 6 players, not being able to score more than 50 points in a game. I don't think that that's going to be a problem. I think they're going to score 60 points today. I just don't know if I want to fucking take a 130 or a 131.5 over on this game. When it opened at 125, yes, very good. Love that. But I just don't love it at fucking in the 130s. And it's getting steamed even more right now. Now, IUPUI is one of the saddest teams in college basketball fucking recent memory. But can this team get behind Bryce Monroe, and can Bryce Monroe take this offense and guide it to fucking scoring the basketball? This still may be one of the worst offenses in the nation, but they can't be worse than last year. Come on. If this team scores 60 points today, I'm going to be very proud of myself. And when you look at Iowa State, you know, they got a bunch of my Bonnies. It's very upsetting. Jaron Holmes and Oshuni are now Cyclones. So it makes me fucking say, well, fuck. What do my guys do at St. Bonaventure? Fucking under city. The problem with this Iowa State team for that, in that sense, is what can this team do now? They can fucking beat you up on the inside. Trey King was a fucking dominant scorer at Eastern Kentucky. Oshuni obviously speaks for himself. Everybody knows him. Kunich, who was there already. Hassan Ward from VCU. There's a lot of fucking ability to pound it inside and just take it to guys. So this Iowa State team, I don't want to bet them as a fucking 30-point favorite, but it won't surprise me if they win the game by 30 plus points. It's just, do they win the game 80-50 or do they win the game 85-60? So, like I said, it's a tough game, but at 131.5, I got to look towards the under now and have to try and middle it. That would be what I'd advise as of right now. At the end of the day, as much as my well wishes for IUPUI to score the basketball more than 60 points in a game, can it actually happen? Yeah. So, all right. ULM versus A&M. Listen, I think that A&M's going to fucking smack them. Not my favorite game that I want to be betting. Cornell and Boston College. Obviously, we've seen some serious steam on this game because Cornell's now a 9-point or 9.5-point underdog. It's changing now. Listen, Boston College is missing fucking DeMar Langford and Quentin Post. Is that going to make a monumental difference? Are they going to be able to take the shots and the production that they would have got from them and get that from somewhere else? I'm not sure about that. I think that this is a very young Boston College team, but Earl Grant is a decent coach. I think that he's going to have these guys playing very well. We may not recognize some of the guys early on, but I do think that they're going to make an impact, and I do think that they can fucking at least win this game. I think that this is one of the games that you circle on your live betting menu and you watch to see, because if they can't make shots early and Cornell gets out to a lead, you're going to get a good number if you want to take Boston College live. But if you see that happening and you don't think that they're going to be able to come back, then you jump on that Cornell first half money line. Because let's not forget, lots of underdogs in college basketball are able to win the first half, but then succumb to a comeback or halftime adjustments in the second. This could be one of those games. All right. Arkansas Little Rock. I don't really want to talk about that game. I talked about the next two games already. I talked about Southern Indiana. I talked about Stony Brook. Okay, so South Dakota and Wisconsin, that's a very interesting game to me, just because I don't know what's going to happen with AJ Plitzwit. Obviously, when you have a guy like him coming back off an injury and dealing with another injury from what I read with his wrist, I'm a little worried about taking South Dakota, even though I'm already on them. I just have enough confidence in Cruz Perro Hunt to really to compensate for him if he's not being able to provide that effective scoring. Now, let's not forget South Dakota went in conference and poached Paul Bruns. So Paul Bruns is a 14-point per game scorer, and I think that he could be that big replacement offensively for Plitzwit for this game. I think that you're going to really have to defend on the perimeter because all four of South Dakota's top guys are going to be bringing you outside. And I think that it's going to open up an opportunity for Carcona to really get some freaking nice one-on-one possessions on the low block. And if he can establish good position close to the bucket, he could find himself at the free throw line 6 or 7 times. And that's the difference, because Wisconsin, what are they known for? Being slow-footed and losing Brad Davison and John freaking Davis. That's losing like 60% of your offense. So I just don't think at the end of the day, Wisconsin has the pieces to really freaking outscore them. The way that they're going to win this game is by winning it on the defensive end. And with the number going from 143 to 138, I still like the under there, but losing 5 points makes me very cringe. Makes me cringe just thinking about losing that shit and it ending at fucking 140 or something like that. So, I like the under if Wisconsin's going to cover, but I've bet South Dakota, and I think South Dakota can stay within. I think they lose a game. I think that losing the game by 10 points is more reasonable than 12 or 12 and a half. And like I said, if Paul Bruns is able to pick up the slack and be that third scoring option out of the backcourt, I do think that they're going to be able to stay in this game. St. Thomas and Creighton. Listen, Creighton is one of the top programs in the fucking nation. It makes me fucking sad to say it as a UConn fan, but I do have some Creighton gear and I do wear it proudly. Listen, with Nenny coming back from the fucking brutal wrist injury, I think that he's the key to their offense. I think that with Trey Alexander, his on-ball defense is fantastic. And Arthur Kaluma, he could be one of the best big men in the Big East this year. The sky's the limit, and they're coached by one of the best coaches, in-game and pre-game coaches that play the fucking game. So I would not be surprised to see Creighton walk all over St. Thomas. If they can get Ryan Kalkbrenner going offensively with his nice little freaking 10-foot and under shots, then I don't see St. Thomas being able to fucking do anything about it. The only way that St. Thomas stays in this game, from my perspective, is by drilling threes. And I'm talking about shooting 35 to 40 attempts and hitting 35% of those. It is what it is. That's what's going to happen. So it's a tough one. All right, so we do have a game starting, so I'm going to stop right there. There may be the possibility of me going on again, but I doubt it. I will say this. Western Michigan was a dog that I liked before the three-point line move. I do think that Utah Valley and Utah State are going to play a high-tempo scoring game. I think that New Mexico is going to have too much offense in the backcourt, and Josiah Alex is going to be the difference maker in the front court against Southern Utah. I will not lay 24 points with BYU, even at home versus Idaho State, after losing their best scorer last year and being heavily reliant on interior scoring, at least to start the season. I do think that Kansas State, even though the number has gone against me now, I still think that they run wild over UT Rio Grande Valley. Justin Johnson is the only proven scoring commodity on that team, and he just doesn't inspire a ton of confidence. I do think that Wilmington, North Carolina are going to continue to put the points in the bucket. North Carolina's three-point shooting is fucking lethal. If you do not get out and close out on these three-point shooters, you will eat fucking crow. Plain and simple. Cal Baptist versus Long Beach State. Want to find out what the status of Joel Murray is. Rice and Pepperdine, revenge game for Pepperdine, but the line value is gone. Moved 2.5 points on the spread. San Diego State may be able to score the basketball very nicely. They may be able to get into the 80s, but I still can count on them playing fantastic defense. And this Fullerton team inspires no confidence in me offensively. I think that they still keep this game under at 136.5, even though there's been a 5-point line move to the over. St. Mary's and Oral Roberts. I think that Oral Roberts gets a little bit of a reality check, and St. Mary's fucking dominates them by taking away the three-point shot and scoring inside efficiently. I like Eastern Washington, but I like them at 9. Santa Clara lost some very key pieces. NBA quality pieces, professional playing pieces. So you just don't fucking turn over the freaking slate and replace that. So this is a spread that I would have backed them last year. I bet against them this year. And that's about it for me on that card. I do think that UC San Diego at 3.5 is a little bit of value. I do like Weber State. I'm never going to be betting on Washington, but I do think that if Washington's going to win the game, then you are going to get a game that's under 143.5. So take that into consideration. And UCLA, they're a very good team. I do not think that Sacramento State has the scoring to really keep up with them. I think that Sacramento State is going to eat crow. It's just a matter of UCLA getting out to a big enough lead that the second half they still add on to it, and then it helps us get over. But if you're up at 11:30, throw me a message and we can fucking talk some shit because I'm gonna be draped up in my UCLA gear. All right, that is it for me. Thank you very much. I will see you guys later. And obviously, Discord is now open for fun times, and Google Sheets available also if you're a volume better. But no pressure whatsoever. Appreciate the time that you spent with me today. And let's fuck with our eyes open. Let's fucking make our bookies cry. And let's make Gus bring me an envelope with a lot of brownies, because there's nothing like playing the first day where everybody's questioning everybody. No one really knows what's going to happen or what's going to be freaking to come. And then you have a fucking $3,000 day and you're like, yes, boom. Just makes the confidence roll over for the fucking next day, the next day, and the next day. All right. That's it from me. Baylor, Mississippi Valley State is on. You guys go watch it. Let's have a great day. Cheers. Take care.